Royal Botanic Gardens. The Domain and the Royal Botanic Gardens were the first parks in Australia. Here you'll find magnificent displays of native and exotic flora, which provide a sanctuary from the hustle and bustle of the city. Of particular interest are the pyramids. To our left, we can see once again the State Library of New South Wales. The new Macquarie Street wing of the library has 5 stories below street level. Amongst the historic documents held here is Captain Bligh's logbook. After his famous mutiny on the Bounty, Bligh served as the 4th Governor of New South Wales. And welcome aboard to those joining us here. Please ensure you remain seated at all times whilst the vehicle is in motion. To our left we have the Sydney Hospital. In front of it you can see a small statue of a boar. The story has it that if you put a coin into the box in front of him and then rub his nose, you will have good luck. As you can see, his nose is very well rubbed. It remains shiny, while the rest of the bronze is more tarnished. Parliament House, the building that still serves as a hospital, is a little newer, having been completed in 1894. Next door, and originally the southern wing of the old Rum Hospital, is the Sydney Mint, completed sometime around 1816. It became the first mint here in Australia. Greenway himself was transported to Australia in 1814 for forgery. He was appointed by Governor Macquarie as civil architect in 1816 and designed more than 40 buildings. Fortunately, that tax has been abolished and the spires are now completed. Hyde Park to our right was the scene of the first horse race track here in Australia in 1810. It was We are now approaching our stop outside the Australian. Memorial today stands as a monument to all of Australia's war dead, and every day here at 11 a.m. a short service takes place that can be attended by visitors. Lest we forget. To our left, the dramatic building with the coloured glass is the RTA here in Sydney. The Road Traffic Authority, to give it its full title, are responsible for all Sydney's driver's licences, vehicle registration and new vehicle inquiries. To our left, the dramatic building with the coloured glass is the RTA here in Sydney. The Road Traffic Authority, to give it its full title, are responsible for all Sydney's Bondi tour and city sightseeing's hop-on, hop-off panoramic tour of Sydney's eastern suburbs. If you'd like to visit Bondi, this is your chance. There may be a short break as we change buses. If you have any question, please ask your driver. And so we turn left into Pitt Street. On our right we can see the Actors College of Theatre and Television, which stands next door to the Anglican Church of Australia, where regular services take place and can be attended by visitors. We are now crossing the busy road junction of Pitt Street and George Street. Just ahead, George Street changes its name to Broadway for about a kilometre before it becomes Parramatta Road and the Great Western Highway, taking traffic to the Blue Mountains and beyond. To our right is the University of Technology Sydney. The University of Sydney, Australia's oldest, dating back to 1850, has its main campus at And so we turn left into Harris Street. If you look to the right, you may get a fine view of the city skyline with the Chinatown area of Sydney in the foreground. If you'd like to visit this area, then you should alight at our next stop by the Powerhouse Museum and make the short walk by way of the footbridge. The Powerhouse Museum is well worth a visit. And a warm welcome to those of you joining us here. As we pull away, please ensure you remain seated for safety reasons. If you look across to your right, we are looking at the roof of the Sydney Convention and Exhibition Centre, and beyond, back towards the city. Sydney Tower with its gold facade is probably the most distinctive landmark and provides visitors with excellent views from the top. To our right, we can see the iconic wave-shaped building, which is the Ian Thorpe Aquatic Centre, named after the 5 times gold medal winning Olympic swimming champion Ian Thorpe. It was built at a cost of $40 million, with 8 50-metre heated swimming lanes, a spa, sauna, steam room, gymnasium, health centre. If we look to the left, the Australian flag should be visible flying from the top of a tall structure. This is the Anzac Bridge. Originally named the Glebe Island Bridge, its name was changed so that it became a daily reminder of the Anzac spirit. We are now stopping for those of you who wish to visit the Sydney Fish Markets, which is a short walk from here. This is the largest sea feast. Try the sushi, if that's your thing. Which is a short walk from here. Directly ahead of us is Johnson's Bay. As you can see, much of the waterside property has today been made into luxury apartments, while on the opposite bank we can often see large ships unloading their cargo at Sydney's container terminal. As Carrara Road, all movements in and out of Sydney Harbour. Also, as we continue around Carrama Road, we're going to pass some more of Sydney's famous finger wharves in Jones Bay. Having served their intended purpose, most have been converted for use as commercial offices. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching our terminal stop at Star City. If you're leaving for a look around the casino or Darling Harbour, please ensure you have both your belongings and your ticket with you. We are now approaching our stop at the Australian National Maritime Museum, which was open. Exhibits include the Crate, a Second World War commando vessel that took part in a daring raid on Singapore Harbour, and even a Vietnamese refugee craft that made the hazardous journey to escape war and managed to reach Australia. One of the largest exhibits is the HMAS Vampire, the last of the Australian Navy's big gunships. See shortly on our left. It is the Guangdong province, which is twinned with New South Wales. From 1813 to 1840. Here's Glenade. That house many international companies who've chosen to make the city of Sydney their base. One of the dock areas that is still actively used is that of the overseas passenger terminal, which is across to our left. The squashed car at the centre of a roundabout is highlighted by street signage declaring, "Hard work ahead." Or is it? You decide. It's certainly controversial. Oh well, it's like fingers on a hand. Made of timber from the turpentine tree, which resists seawater, all these wharves are under heritage protection. Here in Sydney, if a building is put under heritage protection, nothing external can be changed. However, the interior can be refurbished, and this often leads to old buildings finding new uses. An example of this can be seen on our left, where wharves 4 and 5 are now homes to the Sydney Dance Company, the Sydney Theatre Company, as well as the Sydney Philharmonic Choirs. Directly ahead of us, we can see one of Sydney's most famous landmarks, the Sydney Bridge, the coat hanger. Work started on 1923, and it was completed in 1922. It gave over 3,000 men full-time work for 9 years during one of the coat hanger. The opening ceremony was interrupted by one Francis. And so we turn into Pitt Street, which is Australia's most expensive street and the 7th most expensive street in the world. Pitt Street runs the entire length of the city centre from Circular Quay past Central Station and into Redfern. Sydney enjoys an average of 240 days of sunshine and blue skies, making it not just a great place for city sightseeing, open-top bus tours, but also it's ranked as one of the most livable cities in the world. The Australian Securities Exchange, or ASX, beginning trading as early as 1861. As we make our way along George Street, you'll notice many banks that have made this part of the city their home. Amongst the most impressive buildings is the tall glass-fronted structure to our right, which is the home of the National Australia Bank. The hustle and bustle of George Street today is a far cry from its earliest days, when it was a small bush track cleared by the first settlers to access fresh water. As the premier commercial strip, George Street was the obvious choice for the first town hall in 1869. And has remained one of the most important thoroughfares since. If you'd like to explore this part of George Street, you'll need to alight at our next stop. As we leave, please ensure you remain seated. Which we can see in the middle of the pavement and often surrounded by flowers. This commemorates Australia's war dead. If we look ahead and to our right, we can see the shopping arcade known as the Queen Victoria Building, housing over 180 shops by 1920. It was threatened with demolition during the 60s and 70s, but fortunately it survived, and the decision was taken to refurbish it at a cost of over $75 million. If you would like to visit the Queen Victoria Building or Sydney Tower and Sky Tour, then this is your... And a warm welcome to those joining us or rejoining us here. If you look to the right at the end of the Queen Victoria Building, you will see a wishing well, which incorporates a stone from Blarney Castle. The designer tried to outdo his predecessor. Since its opening, the steps in front have become one of Sydney's favourite meeting points. An interesting story originates from the carved lions' heads, which you may be able to see on the facade of the building. One of these, just to the north of the main entrance facing George Street, has one eye closed. The reason for this oddity goes back to when the stonemason to join the Bondi tour As we move further along George Street, we leave the shopping precinct and enter an area with more emphasis on entertainment, with many cinemas, video game arcades, and of course pubs. There's a grim warning to others. As we cross Liverpool Street, we pass under the monorail. Liverpool Street, on the right-hand side of George Street, is famous for its many Spanish restaurants and tapas bars, which serve great Spanish cuisine and wines. Well worth a visit.
Everywhere worth.
As we prepare to turn Irish pub, where good times are promised in a lively atmosphere. You can enjoy traditional Irish entertainment, a warm welcome, as well as a pint of genuine Guinness. It's an authentic Aussie-style pub. It was opened at the turn of the 20th century. If you do come here for a drink later in the day, so we make our way up Wentworth Avenue towards Oxford, whilst to our right is the Australian Museum. St Mary's Cathedral stands on the site of the first Catholic chapel built in Australia, with the first Mass taking place in 1865, and work then started on the current cathedral in 1868. A warm welcome to those who have joined or rejoined us here. Dating back to the Victorian era. These cottages all fall under heritage protection, thus preserving them for the future. In Stanley Street, which runs parallel to William Street, you will break as we change buses. If you have any question, please ask your driver. Convicts aboard the first fleet ships. It also includes a section on the Holocaust, where all the guides are survivors of the notorious death camps. If you'd like to visit this area, and this is our first stop here down Macleay Street, which is named after Alexander Macleay, who was the colonial secretary from 1835 until 1839. He had an impressive house built nearby which took the name of the bay that it stood on, Elizabeth Bay. Elizabeth Bay House in Onslow Avenue is now a museum open to the public every day of the week except Mondays. On our right, we're passing the buildings that belong to the Australian Navy, called HMAS Cutterville. You'll probably see a number of smartly dressed naval personnel walking around as we pass through this area. As we reach the traffic lights directly ahead of us, we have a magnificent view of the Sydney skyline. Directly in front of us is the Sydney Fleet Base of the Australian Navy. And so we come into Wharf Road. Immediately on our right can be seen a small fountain that was presented by the women of New South Wales, turned to its present position when the base was reconstructed. Behind the naval ships lies Woolloomooloo Bay, which takes its name from the Aboriginal word for a baby kangaroo. We can see Woolloomooloo Finger Wharf jutting out into the sea. This is the largest of Sydney's finger wharves and was facing an uncertain future until a few years ago. As can be seen, the decision was taken to redevelop the wharf next door. Joining the expressway as we continue our look around Sydney. If we continued along this road, we'd enter the Sydney Harbour Bridge Tunnel. The tunnel was opened in 1992 to help relieve traffic congestion on the Harbour Bridge. As we exit the underpass, look to our left and you'll see the southern part of the park known as the Domain. It was laid out in 1810 as Governor Macquarie's Domain. Today, to the left is the Intercontinental Hotel. It stands on the site of what was formerly the Bridge Street tram terminus, which was opened in 1882. Looking across to our right, we can see a statue of King Edward VII. This is a dramatic refurbishment that commenced in 1908 and made it into the Conservatorium of Music. Today the building has just undergone another refurbishment and is still used in the training of young talented. As we make our way along Macquarie Street, we'll pass on our left the Royal Automobile Club. To keep looking ahead now as one of Sydney's most famous sights creeps into view. The Sydney Opera House was opened by Queen Elizabeth II in 1973. It had taken some 14 years to complete due to technical, financial and political problems. It was designed by Danish architect Jon Utzon, who won an international competition organised by the New South Wales government. The sails of the roof contain over 1 million Swedish ceramic tiles. The power consumption of the building is equal to a town of about 25,000 people. Inside are nearly 1,000 rooms, some of which are oddly shaped because of the building's angular design. If we look ahead and to our left, we can see once again the State Library of New South Wales. The new Macquarie Street wing of the library has 5 stories below street level, amongst the historic 1820s and the home of responsible government since 1856. Tours of Parliament House are available Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. to... left is Oxford Street. Oxford Street today houses numerous shops selling jewellery, books, music and clothes, to name just a few. In 1811, a Captain William Roberts was paid... left is the Central Baptist Church. It opened here in September 1936, replacing the former building that had stood on nearby Bathurst Street since 1836. Prepare to turn right into Park Street, we can see the Town Hall the Duke of Edinburgh controversially laid the foundation stone while he was in Sydney on his tour. And so we arrive at our stop here in Park Street. A lot than just an advertisement. 41 metres in length and 13 metres in height, the red and white neon sign is made up of 88 vertical bars of red tubing and 1,800 fluorescent lamps. Erected and switched on in 1974, the power was switched as we moved further along Victoria Street. We are now travelling on Victoria Street. To your right and you should be able to see as we pass the Jewish Museum, recording Australian Jewish history from the first settlers, indeed during the Sydney Mardi Gras and other similar events. The Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras began in 1978 as a protest, attracting 1,000 people. Now puts in around 500,000 spectators. These streets are filled to capacity. The barracks are both a well-preserved example of this. Which is open to the public on Thursdays between 10 a.m. and approaching our next stop opposite the Paddington Town Hall. Its design was the result of a competition, although the clock was later added. A light here then at our stop for Paddington. Music and clothes, to name just a few. Well worth a visit if you get the opportunity. Communicate with the local Aboriginal when they saw their first kangaroo hopping along. departing the area or just times of our later buses, please ask your driver. Welcome aboard, and please remember to remain seated while the bus is in motion. 1906. And get this, the first life saved was that of a small boy. His name, Charles Kingsford Smith. He later became a famous aviator and the first pilot to cross the Pacific Ocean. If you flew to Sydney, chances are you will have landed at Charles Kingsford. Board surfing didn't come to Australia until 1915. An American swimming champion from Hawaii called Duke Kahana Muku was in Sydney giving a swimming exhibition. Dover Heights, which is believed to have been named after Dover in England due to the similarity. You've got to agree the views certainly are spectacular. The nudist beach in Lady Bay and finally arrive at Hornsby Lighthouse on the rugged end of South Head. It's a great 20-minute walk along the South Head Heritage Trail, which gives dramatic views of Middle Head, Manly, North Head, and keep a lookout for any low branches, especially after rainfall, where they may be weighed down a bit and hang lower than normal. Your safety is our priority. We will follow the new South Head Road, which began life many years ago before the settlers arrived, as an Aboriginal foot track called Maru. Construction began on New South Head Road in 1831. However, keep a lookout for any low branches. You may be able to see through the trees the playing ovals of the Cranbrook School. This exclusive boys' school is one of many. The plots of land were then priced at £20 each. Over the hill towards Edgecliff. As we come over the rise, you will have an impressive view of the for the first settlers' homes. To our left, we can see the tennis courts known as White City. White City has hosted many world-class tournaments and is still used in competition today. Above us we have the Eastern Suburbs Railway overpass, planned in 1900, known as the Cross to locals, is a bustling cosmopolitan area filled with restaurants, cafes, bistros, shop district, where just about every adult entertainment can be found. Whether this gives King's Cross its unique feel.
Zullen we eens tot hebben?